Thank you so much, Doris. Doris is, of course, the lead of our homeschooling group, and we're really working at Action for Canada to assist parents in trying to respond to what is going on in the education system. And we're talking, when I say education system, we're talking public school, private school, and homeschooling. I've many times said that a lot of times parents thought, oh, you know what, they saw what was going on in the public education. So, they determined that they would just pull their kids out and put them in a private school and they'd be safe there. And of course, then, all of these activists were working real hard lobbying the private schools. And now they've got a good foothold in many, many of the private schools. And so the parents thought, okay, I'll take them out and I'm going to homeschool, thinking they'd be safe there. But of course, if you take a look at California and other places, they're trying to ban homeschooling. They're trying to force, as part of the homeschooling curriculum, that you have to include all of these gender dysphoria and social justice issues such as critical race theory, climate change, and the rest of it. So we need all hands on deck, whether parents are in public school, private school, or they have their kids in homeschooling. We need to be working together as a society. And there's even many parents, many individuals, citizens that don't even have children in the school system, and they're actively involved, because we all know that our children are our future, and it's the future of this nation that we're concerned about. So today I'm going to dive back into the sexual orientation, gender identity resources, also known as comprehensive sexual education, sexuality education, and that comes from the UN and the WHO, who are pushing this on all member nations. So if the nation has signed up with the UN, then they're saying and demanding you have to have this educational as part of your system of education. And it is absolutely horrific. It's causing a great deal of harm to our children. And so you're going to learn a little bit more about that today. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out by, I'm actually going to show the results of this first. Then I'm going to dive a little bit more into our political LGBTQ page to talk, a little more broadly. Then I will show what we're doing to actively, move against this system that's across Canada. And then we'll come up with other solutions as well, such as what we're doing with our youth and homeschooling, et cetera, and show you where the parent resource page is. I don't do a PowerPoint. I use Action for Canada's webpage as my PowerPoint, so to help navigate through it. So if you have a pen and paper, take some notes. Maybe you do it on your phone. I don't know. I'm an old school girl, pen and paper, and just take some notes as to where you can find these links when you go to our website. It can seem overwhelming. I may overwhelm you today, but the video will be posted on the political LGBTQ page, and you can always go back to listen to it to find out more. I'm going to start with sharing my screen and a disclaimer. I'm also going to recommend that if you have children in the room, that you either shut your screen off or remove them. This is not a webinar today for children. All right, I'm going to be showing also a little bit of graphic material, but this is what is available to our children as well. Okay, I always love this. This is one of my favorite things to do, is to show the Action for Canada map. This is what we look like across Canada. Every single one of those beautiful little maple leaves is a chapter. And so when I started, it was in 2015 when Justin Trudeau was running for office, and he was campaigning on all kinds of things. And I was horrified, but people were mesmerized by his hair and his talk, and they thought he was a really cool dude. And, inside I was just breaking up, like panicking, like, people, please don't vote for him. So he had a majority government, and myself and organizations that I began to know over those 4 years that the rule of terror began, I started reaching out to them, and we all together were working very hard to have him removed. And instead he got a minority government, which was a very good thing, because then he couldn't just keep slamming and passing all of this bad legislation through the House, such as Bill C-16, which is the, we call it the bathroom bill, allowing biological men into women and children's private spaces. And then at the provincial level, they pass these human rights legislation, what they would call human rights in addition, amended the Human Rights Code to include gender identity and gender expression, right? These are ideologies. This is not something scientifically and factually. So they're trying to force society to embrace somebody's delusions at this point. You cannot change your sex. There's male and female. People can outwardly have surgeries. Those are going horrifically. If you listen to the testimonies of people who are even now detransitioning or those who transitioned, especially the young people in their 20s who have been sucked into this, they are experiencing excruciating pain. It is absolutely horrible to see what's going on to our young people. And so anyways, okay, if you're looking at that for the first time and going, wow, that looks fantastic, I'm excited about that, then just scroll down. If you are wanting to be a volunteer within a chapter, make sure you register and to be a chapter leader, because you can see we want to be in every town and community. And we're in about 100 chapters, and there's 338 ridings. Those are elections that take place at the federal level, but a riding, if you're somewhere in an urban area or up in the country, then you can have about 4 districts included where one MP overlooks it. So within all of those districts, you have school boards. And so that's why we want to be in every town and every community. Anywhere there's a township or a municipality, we want to get our people elected and start taking our country back. And in the last election, we made some really good progress. So then when you go down into, let's just click on BC, you just go down to your town or city, and you can see that we're doing pretty good there. We've got a lot, especially in Ontario as well. Okay, now we need more action in the Maritimes. And again, like I say, we're working on that. Dan Vachon is on the show today, I see, and he oversees the Maritimes, and he is the chapter leader in New Brunswick. Okay, so here we go. Hang on to your hat, buckle up. Okay, so this is SOGI123. It is also known as the Wynne Sex Ed in Ontario. The ARC Foundation created the SOGI123 learning resource. It is not a curriculum, but what these sneaky dogs did is that they intertwined it into every subject in the curriculum so that parents cannot remove their children and protect them from being exposed to these radical ideologies. And for instance, it's in math, it's in PE, it's in social studies. I'm telling you, a kid can't come to school and not be affected by this. I don't have the symbol, but I do actually. I put it in an action the other day. All right, I'm just gonna, I think it was this one. Let's just go to the bottom for a moment. No. Slight pause here. This is what our kids feel like. And it's a testimony of many children. So mom says, how was school? And this is throwing up rainbows. I mean, in every single subject. Children 8 years old. I've got a mom reporting to me in Ontario through one of my chapters that her 8-year-old has come home, and it's a little boy. And he says, I'm no longer a boy, I'm a girl. And she says, where did you learn that? Because this mom didn't have a clue of what was going on in the education system. As most parents are working hard, you drop your kids off at school, they run into school, and you go off to work, and you have no idea the indoctrination that these kids are going through. So this is very, very powerful picture. Okay, so next, this was in BC as we are working towards exposing SOGI. Actually, maybe I should go back. So it goes, everyone has a sexual orientation and gender identity, male and female, right? But that's not good enough for them. What they do on the website, it's all about psychological warfare of what we're going through to manipulate people's emotions into accepting these unscientific unrealities. So SOGI123 helps educators make schools inclusive and safe for students of all sexual orientations and gender identities. At a SOGI inclusive school, students' gender does not limit their interests and opportunities, and their sexual orientation and how they understand and express their gender are welcomed without discrimination. Now, a fact that we have to remember is that prior to all of this, there was 0 kids in elementary school who struggled with their gender identity. They have no idea what it is. These are prepubescent kids. Now, maybe starting in grade 6 or 7, that, for some girls, but it's limited. These are non-sexual little human beings that they are sexualizing, that they are planting ideas in their heads that they would have never, ever thought of. And en masse, especially the schools are filled with activists at this point. And then there are those wonderful teachers who are remaining in the system just to try to protect the kids and hold the line until this help comes in, is what we're doing on the outside. But these kids are being convinced through this. The SOGI123 resource, I have a copy of the teachers portion of the resource, learning resource. And so in kindergarten to grade 3, they start talking to a child. This is how I say it's indoctrination. And they'll ask them, the class, how do you feel today? And the child will, know if they feel happy or if they feel sad. And then, maybe next week they'll say, well, how do you feel on the outside that's different from the inside? And some kids like to, dress up. Some girls like to climb trees. And so then they can get a chart out with a prince on one side and a princess on the other side. And then they'll ask the kids to go up and, choose where they identify the most. All right, you can see this incrementally happening, moving towards a child questioning their gender identity as a girl or a boy. And so the girl may think, well, I love climbing trees and I like riding horses. I feel more towards the prince. And if that's an activist teacher, then that child becomes a target. If children are autistic, they especially are vulnerable, and they would be susceptible to this. And so then once this child gets through going to the next grades or to the next class, then they're asking, how would your friend feel if they identified differently on the outside and their parents didn't support them? So now this is starting the division between the parent and the child. And it is creating these advocacies, right, within the school system. And those are known as the clubs, the GSAs, Gay Straight Alliance Clubs. They've changed the name of GSA, but it's a Gay Straight Alliance Club. They announce it on the PA to the children, encouraging them to join the club at recess. So now it's the cool thing to do. So now a child starts to identify as a boy, grade 6, grade 7, 8 years old. And the parents are, what? I don't accept this. So now all of a sudden the home is dangerous, the activists say, and a hateful place for these children. It's an incremental attack against childhood and against parental authority. And I've had parents come to me who are desperate, whose child is transitioning, and they know that if they oppose it, then the government could step in and take their child away, because this is an unsafe place. School is a safe place, teaching this, but home is unsafe when the parent works to protect their child. That's just a brief synopsis of what SOGI is doing. Oh, I'll add one more thing. Then when I got to page 19 on this resource, it said, what if your friend identified as an owl? Who would they feel if you didn't accept them? And that you'll hear about kids identifying as animals, cats. This is where this comes in. It's unrealistic, it's unscientific, it's indoctrination, and it's abuse towards our children en masse. And I had Alex Newman on my show. He'll be on next week, Wednesday, on the Empower Hour. And he's down in the United States. He's got a huge exit the school system organization going on down there very successfully. And he says it's like a parent dropping their kid off at school and the building is burning. It's on fire. Would you send your child in? All right, so as a response to all of the work that Action for Canada is doing, I'll be going over the notices of liability, and other organizations are working hard, but our chapters, you saw how many chapters we have in British Columbia, and they're all serving the school boards, they're serving principals at school and teachers, etc., the notice of liability, as well as our to not permit non-governmental and special interest group flags. Like, I'll be going over that in a little bit as well, because our public spaces are supposed to be neutral. And you walk into a school and you look at all the propaganda, the LGBTQ propaganda lining the classrooms, the hallways, outside of the school, rainbow crosswalks, etc. Remember the picture of the child coming home saying, "How are you? How was school today, honey?" and throwing up rainbows. All right. This is not the rainbow that God designed. This is a radical LGBTQ one that is overwhelming our kids beyond what they can manage. And so as a result, the ministers, we've got a new Minister of Education, Ms. Singh here, and she says, "We know that each child expressed themselves in their own unique way, and that 2S LGBTQIA+ students, staff, and families still face discrimination in our education system. Our hard work continues so we can ensure every school is a place where all students, staff, and families feel safe and like they belong." Well, the majority of kids aren't safe. And as I mentioned before, in elementary school, there was 0 LGBTQ kids. And if there was a child that was struggling, there was abuse in their life. There was a reason that child, and it needed to be addressed. Now, the government is passing bills, which I'll show as well, that say if you don't embrace this, you could go to jail. You just must support the dysphoria that we're pumping into your child's head. So this is a good sign to me, because this shows them this ship is sinking. And across Canada and around the world, parents are rising up. We've had enough. You cannot do this to children. And then to turn the whole world upside down for a minority of the population, because they claim that they're not safe, and they constantly victimize this growing 2S LGBTQ alphabet soup, right? It's nonstop. And the pronouns, apparently there's like over 100 pronouns. It's insane. It's not rational. And we're not going to be supporting this. So let's show you what's going on within society and within the schools. So in Kelowna, it's a real hot spot. And we are dealing one-on-one, like we're really involved with the Kelowna School Board and impressing on them that they need to remove SOGI123 and that there is harm happening to the kids. And of course, there's many activists on the board. But we've got 3 people in there now that are on our side. So when you have a vote of 7, we're still not there to win that vote. Anyways, Kelowna RCMP forms unit to combat child porn in face of surge. They got pornographic books in the schools. They are removing kids' natural instinct in how to protect themselves from predators. And now there's this, they have to form a new unit to combat child porn, and that it's a surge. I wonder how come that's happening. Then you've got the former mayor, sexual assault case involving former Kelowna, BC mayor, moved to late February. But here he is. My understanding is potentially that this is sexual abuse towards young women, but that hasn't been confirmed because they haven't released, of course, the victim's information. Again, my understanding is he cannot have access to 4 individuals. I still haven't heard if he's been put in jail because, again, like they say, they delayed it. Now, they knew before the election that took place in the fall that he was under investigation for this, but he was still able to rerun for mayor. Some of us wonder what happens if he did win. Would this information have been exposed? It's a frightening thought. This is an individual. This person here is a gentleman named Tyson Cook, but he goes by the drag name of Frida Wales. And he reads to children, small children. He has a little potbelly pig that he takes to family-friendly events. And he has created, if you go to the webpage to see this, if you watch this video, we had to put warning, disturbing content, because on the side, he creates videos where he's murdering people, dismembering them, then putting them through a meat grinder, eating them and feeding them to his pig, and having satanic rituals. Well, guess what? He's an EA for the School District 23 in Kelowna. So we created a petition, as you can see here, that has over 18,000 signatures, and we appealed to the school board to reassess Mr. Tyson Cook to see if he is still suitable to be a EA at their school. This is his social media site, and I've never seen anything so vulgar in my whole life. This was open to the public. Children who followed him, or school children, could have had access to this. So basically, my understanding is he's been given a free pass. You know, your videos are your creative license, and your social media, just put it on private, and we'll call that even. I asked one of the trustees straight out, if you knew the details about this individual now, and this person, you know, involved in this came and applied for a job, would you hire them? And they told me straight in the face, no. I said, then why is he still there? And John Uhler, a certified sex offender treatment provider who has worked with over 4,000 sexual offenders, and in his experience in profiling other individuals like this, he says, these individuals pose a risk to children because of the depth of the sexual deviancy. And this individual also works for Autism BC. I'm not saying in any way that he's a pedophile or that he's sexually abusing children. I'm just saying that a sexual offender professional who profiles in individuals that he has dealt with have posed a risk to children. What kind of risks are we willing to take with our children? We get one chance at their innocence. Okay, Mission Mom files civil claim against school district, says son was sexually abused by 5 boys. We have also been dealing with the Mission School Board. They've banned Action for Canada and anybody like us who wants to talk about these issues. I did a presentation there online on Zoom with my chapter leader, Christina. And as I was going through the list of books, which I'll be showing you, they shut the delegation down. They shut my screen share down, and the news headline said that I was showing sexually explicit material. So they banned me for showing material of books that they 100% have in their schools. Not all of them, there's a list, and you know, but the majority of them are definitely people committing pedophilia, rape, incest, and yet they ban us from having a voice in exposing this. It's criminal what's going on within the Mission School Board. Here's another one where a dad again, this one happens to be in BC, but I can do this all the way across Canada. I'm just today just showing you examples. You can look up headlines. You'll be horrified by the young girls in Alberta who were at the swimming pool. I believe these were a group of homeschooled girls, and a full adult man with all his body parts comes in and starts changing in front of them and exposes himself. This is pedophilia. This is abuse to our children. This is Justin Trudeau promoting all of this through his Bill C-16 and Bill C-4, right? These are elected officials. As John Uhler says, the sexual offender psychologist that I was talking about, right? These are white collar sexual predators who are in positions who are allowing this to happen. So this father, his 11-year-old girl comes home, and there was 2 trans activists came in without any of their knowledge who had transgendered, and were giving their testimony of the kids of now no longer being a girl and changing outwardly to a boy. Who knows if they've had the bottom surgery or the top surgery, but this is them planting these seeds in their heads to question the God-given natural gender that they were born as, either male or female. And I had a young woman named Sarah on the show, and she is now 21. And at the age of 14, these trans activists came into her school, and they had said, if you're uncomfortable in your body, you're struggling with gender dysphoria. And that was the only green light she needed to start moving ahead and basically self-diagnosing as gender dysphoria, going to a clinic where I can't remember if it was in a half hour, an hour, and they immediately started putting her on puberty blockers. Then the government of BC paid to surgically mutilate her body and remove her breasts. And she was hardly through that. They pressured her into it. She was unsure whether she wanted to do it. And she had explained that to him. They said, well, you need to make up your mind. We need to give the surgery. Somebody else is waiting. Well, how is she going to come up with $40,000 to make her whole life, seem to get better, and her whole psyche would improve by having her breast removed? So she thought. But at the age of 20, she realized she'd been deceived. But after the surgery, hardly had she healed, and they offered her bottom surgery. And thank God she refused to do that, because they take your tendon in your arm on girls. So they mutilate your arm as well. It will be mutilated for the rest of your life, and they make a fake penis. It's a non-functioning fake penis. And there are so many horrific stories of infection. And of course, it doesn't take. And for boys that are having or young men that are having their penis removed, and they make an inverted vagina, infections. They have to put something inside to keep that open. And it is a lifelong commitment to pharmaceutical drugs and extreme excruciating pain. This school is not a safe place. These activists should be arrested, in my opinion. And they're not elected officials. They should have no place in our school systems. BC workshop for 14-year-olds on how to access transgender surgeries. This makes me sick. Mutilating a child's body. Grade by grade breakdown of Kathleen Wynne's graphic new sex ed program. This is from 2015. And it is, like I said, the comprehensive sexual education, SOGI123. The developers of SOGI123, as I said, was the ARC Foundation. They are committed to making sure, they're so proud to have SOGI123 in every province in this nation. So they're already in BC, and our chapter team in Saskatchewan just found out that they are going to commence SOGI123 in the new school year in September. And so we've been communicating with the government. We're saying this program is causing harm. We've served them the notice of liability. When all this starts to fall apart, those individuals that were given this notice of liability, they were warned that this is causing severe harm to children, and they have a duty to protect our children. I hope they're going to end up in jail. I hope they're going to be charged. We don't know where this is going to go, but people are going to pay for what they're doing to our kids. This is the individual who helped Kathleen Wynne get the sex ed curriculum into the schools. This is Benjamin Levin, and he is a convicted pedophile. So take a good look at that man's face. These are the individuals who are behind this. If you look at the drag queens, look up any of the drag queens and see their stage performances. Disgusting. Look up drag queens that have been charged for pornography, having sexual pornography, or sexually abusing children. It is not a rare thing to find out that a drag queen has assaulted children. So Levin was, it's apparently just horrendous, but I think it was like 18 months or something, 16 months that he actually was in jail. Or sorry, 19 months and 12 days. And they let him out 6 months early. Why? And he has no remorse, and he's back within society. And so he was luring parents online to prime them, and graphic detail of what he was telling parents to do, but it was an undercover officer whom he was actually dealing with to the child to prepare him for him to have sex with them, or adults to have sex with children. The OPP warns child sexual exploitation on the rise after 107 arrests. This is November 2022. All right, sexual perversion is everywhere we go because of the LGBTQ. And John Uhler said that if we didn't have pornography, we wouldn't have the LGBTQ, because it is there's levels. If you go to our website, John Uhler, it was like going through a university course with him. We did 4.5 hours of meetings. We've got it on 2 different videos, and he goes through the steps of the from pornography, if people continue on that route, and then it's a slippery slope all the way down to being a serious sexual crimes offender. So now they're trying to create sexual offenders within our school. McGill University researcher solicits online pedophile communities for child love research. What I was, like I said, pre-COVID, pre all of this, I've been trying to ring the bells. And when they passed Bill C-16, allowing biological men into women and children's spaces, and then they also adjusted Bill C-75, was amending the laws against sexual offenders and softening their crimes. Okay, it was all moving, this whole thing is moving towards pedophilia, normalizing pedophilia and sex with children. I always call the UN pedophile central. It's very serious. And we need as a nation to pull out of the UN. I've been asking leaders for that for years. I happen to know that Maxime Bernier agrees with that, not that I'm promoting him, and as well as Rod Taylor with the Christian Heritage Party. Ontario passes totalitarian bill allowing government to take kids from Christian homes. All right, this was back in 2017. I'll get to that when I talk about the bill as to why, well, what I was saying is, right, if you don't support the indoctrination going on and your kid coming home now, your child coming home and saying they're born in the wrong body, then they're coming in and they're taking those kids out of your home because you're unsafe. Sarah's parents knew that there was the potential of the government coming in and taking them. So they literally watched their daughter grow a beard, have her breasts removed and be mutilated in front of them, and there was nothing they could do about it. And this is not an unusual story that's going on across Canada. Okay, so Canada Bill C-4 was passed in December of 2022, and it was tabled many years ago as Bill C-6, and Bill C-6 is banning conversion therapy. Conversion therapy is when individuals back in like the 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever, like decades ago, especially when it was so taboo to be gay back then, and they didn't want to be gay, so they would be institutionalized. They would be given drugs, electric shock treatment, castrated, mutilated, right? Castrated, in order to try to help them get over their gayness. But they determined decades ago that it was cruel, and they stopped this from ever happening again. But remember, I said this is a psychological warfare. So the government is going to use whatever they can to victimize and try to tap into the emotions of individuals to get their support. So they brought this whole scenario of conversion therapy back, saying there was no way conversion therapy was going to, this is cruel, this can't happen to the LGBT community, it's got to stop. So they started platforming for this, campaigning for this, I got to go back to like 2016 or 17. I think it's around 2016 or 17 was with the Bill C-6. And let me also mention, you know, as far as Justin Trudeau is concerned, you know what one of the first things he did as a priority when he became prime minister was lower the age of anal sex from 18 to 16, right? Because people had a right to love who they wanted to love. We're talking probably 45-year-old men with a 16-year-old boy that's been groomed into this lifestyle. Now they bring in Bill C-4, and in 2000, let me back up, because in 2016 in British Columbia, in July of 2016, our premier at the time was Christy Clark, and they were doing the amendment to the Human Rights Code. As I mentioned, every province did it separately at a different time, and they passed it in first, second, and third reading all in one day. 100 sex activists showed up for the vote, and nobody else knew about it. In September is when they put SOGI123 into nearly half a dozen pilot schools. We have 60 districts in all of British Columbia, but they put it into half a dozen school districts. And by 2017, they put SOGI123 into all 60 school districts throughout BC. In the spring of 2017 is when I found out about it. And that's when my battle on this began. And so when I saw Bill C-16 coming, when I heard what Trudeau was doing in dropping the age of anal sex to 18 to 16, the push for young girls to have sex at a younger and younger age with individuals, they've been changing the laws behind our backs. And we've got a huge battle here, but I believe we can win this. One of the greatest things we have on our side is our Constitution and our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The Constitution and the Coordination Oath, the Constitution section 52(1) says that, in brief, that if any law that is passed or policy is in conflict or in violation of the Constitution, it's of no force or effect. So if we're complicit to this, this will continue. But what they've done is illegal. It's unlawful. And it's against our Constitution, so it should be of no force or effect. But try telling that to a desperate parent where they want to take their kid away. How do they hide them? You almost need an underground railroad for parents with these kids right now so that we can undo the damage that's been done in the school system. Anyway, so Bill C-4, they decided that they kept pushing for it. A new election came and it came up as Bill C-4, and they quickly pushed it through the Senate, and it passed. And shame on all those senators for having put it through. So knowingly causing another person to undergo conversion therapy or providing such therapy, which is punishable by up to 5 years imprisonment. All right, so conversion therapy in their minds is taking your child to a counselor. So a counselor can be imprisoned, here it is, conversion therapy, knowingly promoting or advertising conversion therapy, which is punishable by up to 2 years imprisonment. And I believe for a therapist, it's up to 2 or 3 years that they could go in jail if they're caught trying to get to the bottom of why a child is saying they're born in the wrong body. It's very serious what's going on. Let's take a look at what gender diverse offenders with a history of sexual offending look like. This is a government report that just came out several months ago. Down here, it says that examination of the victimology shows that over half were children, 58% of whom were 55% of the 58%. 1/3 of the offenses committed had multiple victims. So this is gender diversity in action. So they're pumping out gender diversity in the school system, creating children that are getting addicted to porn because it's accessible within the school. And there's one of two things that are going to happen with these children that go down this path. They're either going to become victims because they don't have the proper protection, discernment to know that they're amongst predators, or they're going to be the predator and they're going to victimize, like the 5 boys that sexually assaulted the little boy in their classroom in the Mission School District. Those in the news reports, I don't know if it was all 5 boys or just a couple of them, they were repeat offenders in the Mission School District. I sat down for an hour and a half and had a one-on-one conversation with the school superintendent. He's been served the notice of liability. He's going to be responsible because he's warned, and then he still permitted this to go on in his school system. Okay, July 2017, New Statistics Canada reports reflects alarming reality of sexual abuse of children. Reports of online sexual luring of Canadian kids up 815% in 5 years. Can you imagine what it is now since this is 2023, 815%. In Russia has just passed a bill. I'm not saying I'm all pro-Russia now. I'm just saying that they have passed a bill censoring, prohibiting any social media from promoting any gender diversity, any drag queens, any of this garbage on their social media. What is Justin Trudeau passing? What did he just pass? He just passed a bill to censor us from getting this kind of information out of what I'm talking to you about today. Justin Trudeau belongs in jail. Since coming into office, Justin Trudeau has made it a priority to implement and advance the radical LGBTQ political agenda. Let's take a look at some of his friends. If you take a look at this page, I mean, he is gushing over the Queen of the North, who's a trans person, embraced. It's disgusting. It's sickening. Somebody caught it on camera and had promoted it. Prime Minister Trudeau is reported to have close ties to convicted pedophiles. If you view here, John Deglesh, okay, a UN official arrested for pedophilia. Trudeau is friends with him. Trudeau awarded Deglesh the Order of Canada. PM Trudeau's best friend and roommate, Christopher Charles Ingvaldson, was sentenced to possession of child porn. Government of Canada is officially, of course, on their Twitter promoting drag queen and all of the rest of the deviancy. Trudeau Foundation uses pedophilia code words and symbols. And of course, I just spoke to you about the former lesbian Premier of Ontario, Kathleen Wynne, who worked together with Ben Levin and put the Wynne Sex Ed in place. This is what's happening in Canada. Again, this is why I recommended that there's no children. These are the drag queen events. Sorry, I've just got to... I'm going to go quickly. There's Trudeau with his children and his wife. Frightening. The police are, the police are standing right there. Of course, this is the bestiality. I spoke to you about the owls. I saw a video the other day of recent, these are from a few years ago, and almost the whole street, there was just a whole group of men dressed up with these masks on. And that's why they're creating bestiality now within the schools of they're called the furries. Isn't that sound cute? Kids can become furries in school. This is the end result. This is demonic. This is satanic. I know not everybody is going to be a Christian that watches this video, but you know there's good and evil in this world, no matter who you are, and this is satanic and demonic. There's Trudeau. Look at that. Isn't he happy? And other elected officials. Can you imagine in history any prime minister of a country behaving like this? He's the party dude. There's John Hogan, Premier of British Columbia. I forget this little guy's name here. Jagmeet Singh, the former Premier of Alberta. Yep. Isn't he just so woke? Thank God for abortion. Really? What is wrong with people? Okay, paraphernalia. This is what kids are being exposed to at the schools. I think I'll just stop there. Not at the schools, sorry, at the pride parades. And there's actually schools that are promoting kids to go on field trips to pride parades. All right, so now that I've filled your head enough with all of that, I just need to do that because we need to understand the reality of how this is progressing in Canada. I've got interviews that I've done previously on the SOGI123 to go more in depth. We are taking actions. We did a call to action. This is the greatest thing that could have possibly happened in Canada in a long time. The Premier Higgs and the Education Minister have put a policy 713 in place, and it forbids teachers and staff from using the chosen name or pronoun, officially or unofficially, of a child under 16 without parents' consent. I don't know if you've heard what's going on in Florida and 26 states within the US, but they are overturning all of this. They are putting legislation in place to prohibit children from being put on puberty blockers or having the transitioning surgery. They are prohibiting the drag queens from performing. They're prohibiting this resource or this learning curriculum from being in the schools, etc. I would have never expected New Brunswick to be the first to start this in Canada, but I was so thrilled last week when I found out about it. As a result, though, of them doing this, they're getting backlash. So the Prime Minister, the unions, 8 members from his caucus, and of course the media are reporting on this. Prime Minister is, of course, appalled because this is the last 8 years of his work, the beginnings of it to be undone in this nation. And so what we do at Action for Canada, I worked all through the weekend and I created a call to action to ask as many people as possible to write a letter. I even provide a template as an example, or people have copied and pasted it. And that's tremendous. And then also we provide a complete email list. And it's so easy with Action for Canada to just copy this, throw it into your email and send it. So we make it as user-friendly as possible. Well, I sent that out on Sunday night, and on Monday at 4:42 a.m. in my inbox, the CBC reporter who did a very good generic type of report on this, he stuck to the facts. He reached out to me right away and he's asked me for an interview, which I'm actually going to do. And he had said that already over 3 dozen emails had come in. I mean, I'd hardly gotten it out into social media. So I'm looking forward to hear about how many, I'm hoping thousands of Canadians provided support for Premier Higgs. And they may have to call an election because 8 of these members that were revolted, I think 6 of them were actual ministers within his cabinet. And so I said, in our view, an election would be a welcomed opportunity to run new candidates in order to replace the 8 dissenters. And I said who the list includes. And I said, these individuals believe that children should have the right to change their given names and outwardly transition without their parents' knowledge. Do these sound like individuals who can be trusted to act on behalf of the taxpayers of New Brunswick? I think the majority of us would all say, no, it's time to turn this around. I was talking to you earlier about these non-government groups, NGOs, most of them are all getting funding from the government. And they're in our school systems. They're pressuring and applying policy decisions to our elected officials. We need to get busy, my friends. We need to be the squeaky wheel, the loudest voice in the ears of our politicians. If they want to get elected again, they better do, what it is that we're asking. We're the majority. So Gail Costello, she gets on her Twitter page, already receiving messages from teachers who are also saying, nope, not being your gender police, not misgendering kids, and not dead naming them. Dead naming them means that you would call them by the original name that their parents gave them at birth, instead of their new given name that was provided within the school. En masse across this country, kids are being transitioned at school outwardly. I had a mom, she's a lawyer. Her daughter was 12 years old. 5 other kids in that class were being transitioned at school. They were all being supported in self-identifying as gender dysphoric and being given new pronouns and new names. So she gets on, of course, her name is Gail Costello, she, her, like people wouldn't know by looking at her. And nowadays you can't really know, right? Who are you? And so Mandy Davis gets on and she says, students will always be safe to be themselves in my classroom. I will continue to teach acceptance, open-mindedness, and critical thinking. Really? You consider this critical thinking that they're teaching our kids? They're teaching them one way. And if you don't go in that direction, now kids are getting bullied. Kids that are not supporting this LGBTQ nonsense are getting bullied, and parents are having to pull their kids out of the school system. So I think Mandy Davis should be reviewed and either terminated or reprimanded. And these are the activists within the school system. This is great video because now en masse, we're asking you to make it, if you think that I want to do this 7 days a week and work so hard, you got another thing coming. I want my life back. But we're in a war, my friends, and we got to get on the front line of it. When you hear about a rally against a drag queen or outside a school board, show up, get your friends, bring your kids to these. We're the loving side. When the CBC reports most often on this, they are saying that, our side was outnumbered by the LGBTQ and that the police were involved and made arrests, but it is always arresting these radical activists. Because they're hurting inside, they're confused, they need help. But according to Bill C-4, they can't get proper counseling and help. Sorry, that wasn't the report. That was just a good report to go by. Oh, I know sorry, I was confused. This was the great report I would encourage you to watch about groups getting out and rallying now. And so about Costello, whom I mentioned above, she has reported that 21% of students in New Brunswick identify as LGBTQ. It used to be 0.001%, and now it's 21%. This is evidence that they're indoctrinating our children. You can't tell me that's not indoctrination. There's that little picture I showed you again. Okay, so how do you get into our resources? Current issues is here where you would find the homeschooling and the political LGBTQ activism. I would even encourage you to go look at some of the other things we're doing. 15-minute cities, city councilors, we're prohibiting them and telling this is an exercise in futility to try to lock down our streets and create 15-minute cities. Okay, but over here to political LGBTQ, These are the videos that I would encourage you to take the time to watch. Knowledge is power, and when you have it, you got to use it and you got to share it. And we need to help other parents understand before it's too late. It's a burning building. Don't put your kids in the public school system. Take action today. So we have a whole section here of the SOGI123 and Wynne Notice of Liability. We have SOGI123 flyers and a Wynne Sex Ed flyer. We have our chapter leaders across the nation printing thousands of these, going to schools and teams, standing on the sidewalk on public ground and handing them out to parents. Can you imagine if we had 1 million parents going out, parents and citizens going out and helping to educate families on what is happening within the school system? And so this is just one look at a book. It's Perfectly Normal, where they call it sexual education. It's for, I think, kindergarten, I forget to what grade. Did we put that on here? Anyways, it's very explicit. This is pornography, but the RCMP claim that it is not. It's educational. Okay, so we're going to just take a quick look. I told you that we would. So this is what I had shown the Mission School Board, and granted, there's a couple of books in here that weren't on their webpage, but the other ones are equally as bad. Not on their, on their webpage and within their libraries within their school. We've explained that this is warning sexually explicit materials. We've provided the sections of the criminal code that says that this is pornographic. But like I said, I've had a 2.5-hour meeting with the RCMP, an hour meeting with other RCMP, and they all claim that this is not pornographic material. But down in the States, they're calling it pornographic. So I don't know, maybe the police should be talking. This is the book Identical, which describes in detail a father raping his daughter. And this is It's Perfectly Normal. This is the one that they said is educational, sex education. But pornography says that whether it's a cartoon or a real person, if you changed, John Uhler had said, why didn't you ask the police if you changed this to actual people, would this be considered pornographic to show this to children for sexual education? Yeah, I think it would be, especially kindergartners, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. Okay, then there's a list of other books here, All Boys Aren't Blue, and just the graphic detail again in this novel of what's available to our kids to be reading. This book is gay. Again, so hyper-focused, but the ones that, again, I'm just gonna scoot down here. I'm almost there. There's a book called Gender Queer. And when I talked to the RCMP about it, they said that it has to be in the context. You can't just show an image and expect it's pornographic. You have to understand the context of the book. So I don't know what there is to understand the context with a book with that kind of imagery in it. But this is what our kids have the opportunity to be exposed to. Now, this is Sarah, the beautiful young woman I was talking to you about. She was on the Empower Hour. I highly recommend you go in and listen to her story. It is heartbreaking, but she is definitely on the road to recovery. A year ago, January 2022, she had gone to church with her mom and dad looking like this, looking like a man with a beard. And the pastor decided to preach on biblical sexuality. And it was just like something overcame her. And she all of a sudden really realized that she'd been had. And her dad saw what was going on and took her aside, and she ended up detransitioning, but it's been a painful journey for her. Sarah and I are in contact. I believe that, there's legal actions taking place in the United States and in Ontario against surgeons and against the people that did these to our kids. And I believe that Sarah has a very good case here. This is a report that I wrote in 2018 that I highly recommend that you would review. This is worth your time. The WHO, their standards for sexuality includes 0 to 4. So they go through age ranges, just in case you didn't believe me that the UN is sexualizing our children. They want you teaching enjoyment and pleasure when touching one's own body, early childhood masturbation. Okay, 0 to 4 years old. These are pedophiles. Again, another video highly recommend is The War on Our Children. This was put out, I think, in, I want to say 2017, but it also explains a magnificent job of the comprehensive sexuality education. And it is nations around the world that are dealing with this. Those member nations where they have radical sex activists like Justin Trudeau. You saw this kind of things in the pride parades that Justin Trudeau is into, so you can bet he's part of this. World Economic Forum declares pedophiles will save humanity. Age gap love laws, because of course when you got pedophiles and you're sexualizing children and you're sterilizing them, you're mutilating their bodies, they can't have children. When they're not interested in the opposite sex, they're not getting married and having families. Some people have said, oh, that didn't take place in the World Economic Forum, but trust me, there's no doubt in my mind that's what's going on. So we give you a little more reports, but where I want to show you, I always love highlighting the good news report, and this is where this is a fraction of them. I just don't have time to keep up with this page. It mentions New Brunswick's the 3 changes. Vermont high school forced to pay out $125,000 to a girl told she must shower with trans-identified boy in female locker rooms. This is what I mean. Legal actions are coming. The States is about 3 years ahead of us in this because Obama came in before Trudeau did, and he started pushing this radical agenda, him and Michael Michel, his partner, and they really were very intensely pushing this radical agenda into the schools, and now it's becoming undone. We got 26 states and growing who are turning this around, as I had mentioned. And New Brunswick, we hope and pray, is the beginning here. So Texas is doing a phenomenal job. Norway bans child sex changes. We've got all kinds of Florida, phenomenal job being done in Florida. This is where Russia bans all LGBTQ propaganda. Idaho, Kentucky, dozens of states. So I'm very excited about that. I want to give you hope today that we're making great progress in Canada. There is just wonderful work being done. And I just got to go back at this time and highlight. Now you can see again why it is so important to fill up this map with Action for Canada chapters, because they're taking all of the resources that Action for Canada is creating, and we are united and in one moving body implementing this within our communities. We are taking back this nation by storm. Okay, I just want to see, and down below, you'll see a lot of the videos that I was talking to you about on this page, including all of the actions that we've been doing, exposing school board censorship. I call them fascist dictatorships. And Gillies is an amazing counselor. She is absolutely incredible. So like I said, so many great resources. Here's John Uhler. These are the 2 videos that I was talking about. You will be a changed person when you watch these videos. I was. It gave me such a greater perspective of the predators among us, who it is that we're dealing with, and being able to identify them. And down below as well is information. I mean, just, it's phenomenal. Okay, so now I'm getting ready. I'm coming near to an end here. That's the report I was saying that I had written. It will give you information on pretty much everything. It's got that video I spoke about right here as well. So there's a few places where I've put this information. Plus it's got details of what Trudeau did in line with the UN to decriminalize sodomy. He took a step, right? 18 down to 16 years old for anal sex, prevent mental health professionals from treating homosexuality as a disorder. Bill C4, ensure legal documents reflect individuals' subjective gender identity, done. Impose social acceptance of homosexuality, including by challenging religions, done. And indoctrinating children in society through propaganda at all levels, done. So this was the 5-point plan. It's done in Canada, and we're going to be reversing this. And they're targeting children as agents of change with the sexuality, with the climate change propaganda, with the critical race theory. And that's another thing the States is doing as well. They're overturning all the critical race theory. I give wonderful examples in here that if you've got friends that are like, no way, Tanya, I don't, or, I don't believe you, you can go to this page and provide it. Now down below here, it gives also information that if kids are left on their own, There are kids that go through their teenage years and they do question their identity. For some, it's very natural to do that. But if left alone, 80 to 95% of children working through the confusion will eventually embrace their birth agenda, their gender birth. And that's really important to understand. They won't go for puberty blockers that are going to cause bone degeneration, that are going to cause, you know, their backs to be deformed, and they're not going to get their bodies mutilated. What kind of civil government who says that they're against this is conversion therapy? This is mutilation of children. Everything they proclaim to be against, the government is promoting and subjecting our children to. And it also says very clearly, one of the things, psychological warfare, they're telling parents, so little Johnny comes home and says, I'm a girl. They'll tell parents, would you want a dead son or a live daughter? Because these kids will commit suicide. The fact of the matter is, and you can understand why, is to undergo sex reassignment surgery, these individuals have a 20 times greater rate of committing suicide than the general public. That's frightening. It's sickening. In 2018, there was a study, 115% increase in girls seeking to transition to the opposite sex. That's in 2018. That's 5 years ago. I would imagine this figure is closer to 10,000% now after all the years of indoctrination in our school system. Okay, so anyways, that's a great report. Warning, sensitive content. Again, our children can't turn away, neither should we. So please, again, get actively involved in saving our kids in this nation. It takes 1% to turn things around. And Action for Canada has a huge and active email list, but we need more. Okay, so under resources, you will find the parent resources, the parent webinars with previous parent webinars on it. Doris will mention that later, where we've done a lot of homeschooling webinars. You'll be able to see the youth movement leadership and speaker program as well. This is what Action for Canada is doing, and it's very exciting. We have had already 2 5-week programs this year on youth leadership and speaker program. And my heart is so full. My heart is so full because of what the results are. The kids that have joined this program, let me just see on this page at the top. If you scroll down a little bit, my page is just loading here, you will find the speeches that the kids gave, and you will be blown away. So this portion here was from a session we did, an 8-week session we did last year. And then we've got a few more that we've added from February to, was it February to March to April? February to March to April. My dates are confused. Oh, there we go, February, March. And we're going to also be adding a few from the last session that we just have. And we're planning to have another one in the fall. So I hope that you'll pay attention to that and sign your kids up. Honestly, go down and listen to the videos. Some of them I am just drawn to tears. In the ones that, the speeches we just wrapped up, there was a couple, and I said to the gals, I said, I would be honored if you would write a speech for me. I would read these at rallies and at events that I speak at. They were so well done, and it was so impressive because these are the future leaders of our country. And if we're not investing in them, where is our country going? Look at the investment that the government is willing to make and look at the results. We have to turn this around, and the youth are the ones that need to be inspired because they are the next generation. Okay, the homeschooling page as well. I'm just going to go to the Homeschool Association Directory. And what we have done is we're not creating the wheel. We're not providing a homeschooling curriculum because it's already been done. It's been going for decades, and it's really catching on right now. There's this mass exodus happening within schools across Canada, and parents are figuring out. And yes, you know what? A parent may need to stop working in order to do this, but you get one chance with your kids. So we have vetted homeschooling groups that we feel are very qualified, that we feel good about promoting and encouraging parents to get involved with. If you go down the page, we also provide information on resources. There's a legal group called Canadian National Legal Support for Homeschoolers, and from the HSLDA, and we had Peter Stark on about a month ago. And again, that video is on the webinar page. Homeschool laws and regulations by province, because it does differ. Curriculum providers, here's a little bit more information if you want to order books, etc., and a blog to follow, homeschool tips, and more. All right, so we really are wanting you to be as equipped as possible to take this on. And this is just a look at the parent page. We give you a link to the homeschooling group. We give you a link again to, is that the webinars? Yep, okay, some news reports and other information, notices of liability to stop the infiltration of the LGBTQ propaganda into the schools, must-watch videos, and the flyers should be down on this page. I believe they're at the bottom. Here you go. We try to put things on several pages to try to make it as easy as possible for you to access them. Now I'm just going to back up for one moment. And I just wanted to go over to the notice of liability page, just so you have an idea. We got bumper stickers that are coming out that people would be able to order, and signs, etc. It's just really magnificent. So we've got two different versions, of course, because the Wynne Sex Ed is an actual curriculum. They've made that, but the SOGI is a learning resource. And in British Columbia, the school boards are responsible for learning resources, and therefore they have the power and authority to remove it. And that's what we're pressing in on, and that's our goal. They have to take responsibility because this is causing harm. So a notice of liability, and this is not a legal document. We don't promote it as a legal document. It's informational. It's telling the recipient that what you're doing is either causing harm or it's unlawful. And in this case, it's both. It's causing harm and it's illegal. You can't sexualize and sexually exploit children. You can't, subject them to sexual performers. You can't provide them sexual material, and you can't exploit their minds. You can't provide unscientific information. You can't deceive them, and that's exploiting children. It's exploiting their innocence, and they're just not mature enough to handle these types of conversations. You will also notice that the school boards now have student trustees. So they're inviting kids to mentor them to be the future trustees that will also censor good conversation and necessary conversation. So they're grooming them to be, the next dictators on the board. And so in one instance, one of our parents, I believe it took place in Kelowna, and they had, I believe, I'm just trying to remember the facts. They had discussed, I know, we had done a prayer walk around the school board, and a chunk of the building had come down, and I had quoted a scripture in my notice about it, stating that God takes very seriously. And in the Bible, I believe it's in Acts, he says that better to wrap, a millstone around your neck and cast yourself into the sea than to harm a little one. Like, it's very serious. You can understand why parents or anybody would say, man, you harm a child and you're setting yourself up. But that was God's quote, not mine. But I happened to apply that to the letter. And I ended up getting a letter from a legal firm that the school board had hired, saying that I was, promoting vandalism. Now, they said it was an act of God how the building came down. They said it was a windstorm. It was just a little chunk of building on a new building, and it happened to be outside of the school board superintendent's office. And so we were curious as to how that had happened. I wrote a little report on it. And then because of this verse, they said that I was causing violence towards the district, which is ridiculous. Remember, they're going to manipulate anything in order to push their own scenario. And so my lawyer sent them a letter saying this is ludicrous. All right. People went and prayed around the building. That's it. As to the building, a chunk of the building coming down, maybe that's an act of God and maybe they should pay attention. But anyways, so our kids are being sexually exploited within the school system. We've got these school boards, as I'm just mentioning, that are prohibiting parents from coming in and talking about their concerns. They've now got children in there. So when one of our people had gone to the school board meeting in Kelowna and mentioned this verse, They said that this young person was traumatized by it and so worried that they were going to have a millstone around their neck and cast in the sea. Utterly ridiculous. And I looked this trustee in the eye when I spoke to her, and I said, the school board meetings, I said, are for adults. They're for parents to discuss their child's education. You need to stop with the student trustees if that's the case. All right, so as I mentioned, the notice of liability just lays it out as to legally what their obligations are. It explains the harm that is happening to children. It helps them to understand that the mind of a child cannot cope with this sort of information, and that it breaks down their natural ability to be able to recognize predatory behavior. It's a very well written letter. Then we just ask, it doesn't have to just be parents. We're asking citizens en masse to be signing these and bringing them to school boards, because you are paying your tax dollars, and your tax dollars are paying for this within the schools. And so with that in mind, you have a right to have a say in how those dollars are being spent. Okay, a lot of people say, I don't have a child in school, and so this doesn't really apply to me. But 100% it does. And also, every single Canadian has a duty to report. And so if you know that harm is going on within the school system, if you are now aware of this, you actually have a duty to act on it and do something about it. So I hope that presentation was helpful. And Doris, I'm just going to hand that over to you now. Thank you so much, everybody, for your time.
Yes, Tanya, that was so helpful and loaded. There's so much there to read through and watch and be alerted about and to wake up to. And we really appreciate all the information you've been giving us here today. And yeah, no, I agree. It's not just for parents. I'm a grandma, and it happened to my very own grandchild. She was in a private school, and they brought the drag queen in for story time. And fortunately, my daughter, who is the mother, had an app that parents get at this school, and was noticing that it was a man's voice teaching or reading a story to the children. And fortunately, they reacted quickly and talked to the principal, and he said, my hands are tied. So my granddaughter was pulled out of school, and this was back in February of this year. And I've been homeschooling her. It's kindergarten, and we're having a riot. And I just love homeschooling. I homeschooled my own kids, K to 12. And so kindergarten's quite easy, and we're just making it so fun. So I just also too want to screen share mine, because I just want to narrow in a bit about what Tanya talked about. Just got to move this black thing. There we go. Resources. So I'm on the home page at Action for Canada. I'm just going to scroll down to these parent webinars here. And if you wanted to sign up or tell your friends to sign up for all our parent webinars, you want to do that right here. And then you'll get your weekly emails. And just want to show you a little bit more in detail some of the videos we did cover. So here we had Wendy Livingstone, part 1 and 2, actually show parents the day-to-day of how to do homeschooling. And if you've got several children, how do you manage them all at once? And there's lots of great information there. Down here, where's the one about Peter Stock from Action for Canada? Here it is, right here. Or it's not Action for Canada, with the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, HSLDA. They've been around 30 years protecting homeschool laws in Canada, and their website is loaded. I would go to it. It's right here. And I would go there because you will find the laws for your province. You will find the support groups across the country and in your province. And I would encourage you to sign up, because by signing up, you support them as they continue to protect the freedom to homeschool in Canada. And as we heard in California, how they're trying to get rid of it. It's one of those things we fought for 45 years, 50 years to have the freedom in Canada to homeschool. So we want to keep that going and support HSLDA. And then this one here was our first one that we launched. That's me talking just how to get started, etc. And I know a lot of you are wondering, how do I start? And we've got a homeschooling page right here. I would encourage you, I'm just going to go right to the association directory. Each province has its own homeschool laws. They're very easy to work with. We've got phenomenal laws. BC and Ontario have great laws. And let's just look at, actually, I'll look at here, BC, that's where I live. And there's a summary here. It tells you the different kinds of ways you can homeschool. And I know in some provinces you can do it distance learning, and you can do it just totally on your own, which is what I highly recommend. And then we've also got schools in BC that offer homeschool programs. So you get a dedicated teacher who will stay with you on the journey for the year. They've got these co-ops and learning pods once a week where kids, homeschool kids gather, and they are meeting new friends, which is amazing, because that's where my kids met a lot of their friends when we were living on Vancouver Island. They've also got, in BC, we've got 3 now churches who have opened their doors to be used as classrooms, and they've hired teachers who are homeschool friendly and who will follow through and commit to dedicating very unique tailored learning styles to the children. And that's unique to BC. So if that's something you want to see in your province, I would go to the association website. So here, I'm just going to show you Alberta. It says Alberta Home Education Association. Over here, Manitoba Association of Christian Homeschools. You want to tap into those websites. Once you contact them, they're going to walk you through how to pull your child and what you need to do, whether to just submit an email or a letter just of intent. Some provinces, not in BC, but in some provinces, you just have to outlay a learning plan for the year. That can feel overwhelming if you're just starting. It comes very easily over the years. But the people at these association groups, they have years and years of experience and knowledge to support you and help you through your journey. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to contact your province and your provincial homeschool association. Contact them, find the support group that's near your town or city, get connected, find like-minded people. That's where the conversations in the hallway happen, where you share ideas and ask lots of questions. And these people are knowledgeable. Their websites are loaded with how-to, learning styles, teaching multiple ages, socialization, all the questions that can be quite overwhelming if you're getting started. And they will help you and walk you through each step. I also wanted just to point out next week, or in 2 weeks from now, June 27th, we have a special guest speaker, Israel Wynne. He's an author and a public speaker in the homeschooling movement. And I've asked him to speak because he's got a very good understanding on the influence of the public school and how the history of government schools got started and how they became God haters with an anti-God view. And he's going to move into the heart of homeschooling and what really matters And a lot of times when we get started, we get quite fixated on curriculum and just filling out the pages and submitting it. And then you feel good, like, oh, my child finished grade 1, but did they learn? And as homeschooling parents, learning and retaining is key than just filling out papers and going, I'm done. And so it's really important that we understand the heart of homeschooling and that you love it and that you enjoy it, and it doesn't become overwhelming to the point where you're so discouraged and overwhelmed and you just don't know if you can do another year. And so Israel Wayne's going to cover the heart of that and how you really get to enjoy having your kids back, or if you're just getting started, keep having them at home, and how to start all those things. So we're really excited to have him come on board. He's going to end up with some encouragement as you move into the summer and you make your decisions for the fall. If you have any questions at all on any of homeschooling, send me an email at homeschooling@actionforcanada.ca. I'd be happy to help you on your journey, point you to the right province, perhaps. If you send me an email, let me know what province you're from. That always helps me to get started. So yes, thank you everyone for being here today. And I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. We're going to take July off from the parent webinars, and then we're going to resume back in August. So feel free to contact me, or if you need to get a message out to Tanya, reach out to us as well. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Doris. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today.